Today we're going to talk about similarities and differences between the SAT and ACT grammar sections. Alexis here at our office in Wellesley, Massachusetts. For questions or tutoring in person or online, visit preppedandpolished.com or call 781-753-9951. And remember, if you find value watching this video, smash that like button and click the subscribe button. And also click the bell to get notifications for new videos. Now let's get right to 5 similarities and differences between the SAT and ACT grammar section. Now when we're looking at both the SAT and ACT tests, there's a common section known as the SAT writing and language section and the ACT English section. Now, we're going to be talking about similarities and differences between both sections. When looking at both sections, there's definitely a similarity between the structure of each one. There's going to be a certain number of passages, and during those passages, as you're reading, you'll be answering questions on a variety of topics that deal specifically with how the passage and how the sentences are structured. Furthermore, you can't simply just breeze through this section without paying attention to the content of the passage. And this is where we get into our next point, passage analysis. You will have to pay attention to simultaneously individual sentences and what they are saying, as well as the broader topic within either the paragraph itself, individually, multiple paragraphs, or the entire passage. So you have to pay attention to what is actually being said in order to answer a lot of these questions. A second similarity is actually a funny one, but both the writing SAT and language section and the ACT English section have a no change answer choice. For the ACT, it's either answer choice A or F, and for the SAT, it's always answer choice A, where we have this no change answer. Now we got to be very careful about this. I've heard so many students in the past say, I've heard that if you look at no change, it's right every 4th or 5th time. And the fact of the matter is that sometimes it is right and sometimes it's not right. What I like to think of with the no change answer is simply this. Is what is written in the text correct, or is it not? Now, 2 other similarities between the SAT writing and language section and the ACT English section is the grammar content. So if you have grammar topics on both sections of the test, now personally, I like to clump punctuation and grammar together at times, but other times they're their own things. So if we are looking at grammar, we're talking about modifying clauses, pronouns, nouns, verbs, adjectives, structuring sentences with parallelism or relative pronouns. These questions show up on both the ACT and SAT, as do questions about commas, semicolons, colons, dashes. You really want to be prepared for either or. Similarly, rhetorical-based questions are usually the questions that are actually asked if you look at a side-by-side comparison with the SAT writing and language and the ACT English. Now you'll notice that not every question actually has a logistical question. So for both ACT and SAT tests, be prepared to answer rhetorical questions based on what the question is asking, such as should the author add this or should the author delete this? Or the author is considering revising the sentence to say X or Y. Now for any of these similarities, the structure, focusing on passage analysis, no change answers, grammar, punctuation, and rhetoric, you're going to see the similarities between both tests. So if you feel comfortable with that, it might be easier to work on either the SAT or ACT. If you're not sure which test to take, make sure to reach out to Prepped and Polished to get a second opinion. We're happy to take a look at the more specific details and differences between either of those sections that your son or daughter or student has taken and come up with a plan. Now, in terms of the differences between both tests, these are going to be some subtle differences that we're going to be talking about, but then also a few differences that are quite significant. First of all, timing difference. Standard time for the SAT is 35 minutes for this section. Also, you have only 44 questions. On the ACT, you have 45 minutes. So yay, more time. But you also have 75 questions, almost double that of the SAT. So if timing or the number of questions could be a contributing factor, you want to really take a hard look at this. Now, another thing to keep in mind is the proportion of questions. This kind of builds off of the number of questions and timing. So if you're looking at 75 questions for the ACT English section, you can expect a lot of question types that are asked, and there's a good amount of quantity for each one. Now, usually how I look at it, ACT is split roughly evenly between grammar questions, punctuation questions, and rhetoric. On the SAT, however, the writing and language section, since you have fewer questions, there's not as many of each style. So usually how I like to think about it is there's about half the amount of questions for rhetoric, and the other half is some kind of combination of grammar and punctuation. Now, I can't say exactly it's a split, like 22 here, 22 there, but I do see that at times a fairly even split, or on one test might have a little bit more rhetoric, or another test might have a little bit more grammar or punctuation. Now, one other difference is actually the physical location of this section on the test. Now, on the ACT, the English section is the very first section. So if you are waking up early on Saturday to take this test, you will wake up to the very first section of the ACT, being the ACT English section. Therefore, you want to make sure you are mentally prepared to hit the ground running for this section. Now, on the SAT, the grammar section is actually the second section of the test following the reading section. So be prepared for a very small break after the reading section, and then you will dive right into the writing and language. Now, a fourth difference is the scale and the score. With the ACT, each section score, including the English, is ranked out of 36. Now, this score is combined with the composite, which creates your average score for the test. The SAT writing and language section is a scale score out of 40. But the difference between the SAT and the ACT is that the writing and language is combined with the reading to create what is known as your critical reading and writing score. So it's really important to note that if you're really good at English, but maybe not so good at reading, that you might prove to do better on the ACT English because of that individual section and how that can affect your score versus the SAT writing and language section, which unfortunately is combined with the reading. So even if you do really well in the writing and language, if you drop in the reading, your critical reading writing score might not represent how good you are in terms of writing and language section. Now, the final difference is an interesting one because there are certain unique questions to both the ACT and SAT. I'm going to go over a few, but it's worthwhile contacting us at Prepped and Polished to get a sense of what are those differences for question types and how we can help. Now, a few question types from the ACT that we've seen before is these sentence combination questions. Now, these are different than the sentence order questions or sentence placement questions. It's where you have 3 or 4 sentences in a paragraph and they're asking you to figure out what's the correct order of them. This matters about checking on the flow of a sentence and connection of ideas. Another ACT-only section is asking about the author's purpose. Now, these questions tend to be at the end of the passage and they ask, suppose the author's intended purpose was X. Did he or she accomplish that? As for the SAT, we find a lot more questions are asking about effectively combining the sentences, simultaneously asking for being concise and direct, but also being thoughtful about what exactly is being mentioned and how can we present that information correctly. Now, another type of question that you see on the SAT are infographic questions. Now these questions usually are presented as tables, graphical analysis, or figure analysis that asks the student to say which of these answer choices best reflect the information presented in the table or the data that's presented. These deal with a combination of understanding what exactly is being stated, what numbers are there, which answer choice correctly gives these values in relation to the passage. Now all these similarities and these differences, the differences being timing, proportion of question types, location on the test, scale or score, and unique questions, knowing these similarities and differences really helps us to understand what we need to know about the test so that we can put our best foot forward. And again, I highly recommend that you reach out to us at preppedandpolished.com to see what we can do for your student, how we can adjust their understanding on the test so we can best prepare them for the section. Best of luck, and I'll talk to you soon.